Hey guys, welcome back to another review on the channel. Today I'll be reviewing Scooby-Doo and a Mummy 2, which is the 12th episode of Scooby-Doo, where are you season 1. So yeah, let's get straight into the review. So the episode opens up as we see the mystery machine parked outside, looks like a little museum, and inside the museum we see the gang having a chat to the professor and Dr. Najib, and they're all around the mummy of Anka in its case. And Dr. Najib tells the gang and the professor that the mummy is cursed and it will turn all into stone, which is pretty freaky when you think about it. Anyway, it's getting late and Dr. Najib has to go somewhere else, so he decides to leave, and the gang go off to get some food, and while they go off, the professor stays behind in the museum, and then he's inside his office. He hears a big loud smash, and he opens the door, and something's smashed through the glass and broken into the museum, and the mummy of Anka is gone. And then at the malt shop we see the gang getting some food, some ice cream sandwiches, and when they go to pay, Shaggy pulls out a coin that the professor gave him to pay, that he found inside the museum. It's an old Egyptian coin, and they quickly rush back to the professor at the museum. Now, when they go back at the museum, I think it's pretty strange how the doors smashed with glass, and they go inside the professor's office, and they say that the professor is turned into stone, reading on his chair in his next to his desk. And the gang all look at each other, and there's only one person who could have done it, the mummy. And when they realise that the mummy of Anka is gone, they decide to split up. Daphne and Fred go one way, and Velma and Shaggy and Scooby go one way. Shaggy and Scooby get scared, and they dress up in pots and pans and get brooms for weapons. And they walk past a janitor's office, and they put it inside the closet, but the mummy grabs it from him, who's inside the closet, and they quickly slam the door on him, and they run away, and they get Velma's attention, and they run into this mysterious room. Then the mummy follows them into the room. Scooby's hiding in a pot next to two other pots, and Velma and Shaggy are dressed up in costumes. The mummy smashes one of the pots and finds Scooby inside, and then Velma sneezes because of her costume got away and was scratching her nose. So then they take off again. The mummy comes after him and corners them, and then he asks them for the coin, the old Egyptian coin that Shaggy found, and Scooby then quickly gets a Scooby snack for Velma to fight the mummy. Karate kicks it, and then he runs away like a coward, and the mummy's following him, and Shaggy and Velma get pretty worried, and they might have to give the mummy the coin to get it to go away, but then Scooby comes back with a hammer and nails and bolts the mummy to the floor, and then we see Daphne and Fred. They're outside, and they find giant footprints, and they believe it's the mummy's footprints. They follow them. Then they spot Dr. Najib's car, and they think it's kind of weird how the car's still there, seeming he left hours ago. And when they walk up to it, they realise that Dr. Najib is turned to stone, just like the professor. And then it cuts back to Velma and Shaggy and Scooby, and they're still in that same... They come back to that room, and the mummy's gone. And they didn't leave him enough time to find Daphne and Fred, and managed to get away, but he left a little bit of his bandages. So Velma goes to the chemistry lab to experiment on the bandages to see if they really are 3,000 years old, like the actual mummy of Anka. After Scooby, fooling around, mixing up all these potions and turning his head into like a frog head, the mummy then gives a test tube to Velma, the test tube she needs to finish the experiment. And then Velma and Shaggy realise it's the mummy, and they quickly mix up a whole bunch of potions together, and smoke covers the room. No one can see anything. Shaggy and Velma slam the door on the mummy and Scooby, and then at that moment Daphne and Fred arrive, and they realise that they locked Scooby in there with the mummy. They open the door again, and there's nothing to be seen, just smashed test tubes and files, and there's a window, and it was open, and they realise that the mummy's taken Scooby. So then they go off and split up to search for Scooby, and then Shaggy finds a statue of Scooby, and he thinks he thinks the mummy's turned him to stone, but it's just a statue. Scooby's actually in the shed, but he digs his way out and finds Shaggy, and they start moping on the Scooby statue together, which I thought was quite funny. And after a little while, they meet up with the gang again, and there they find a book, and Velma's reading it, and in the book it gives description of the ancient Egyptian coin that the mummy is after, and they're inside the professor's office reading it, and it fits. It's like on the picture of the coin is like embedded into like a hippo, and this special hippo has other coins as well, and that's obviously what the mummy's after. But then the mummy breaks into the room and chases after Shaggy wanting the coin. The gang run down to the basement. They hear the mummy coming, so they continue to run. They run into like this wood room, and the mummy basically traps them. Daphne was meant to shut off the light, but poor old Danger Prone Daphne turned on the power saw, and the power saw then goes around the room and then cuts part of the floor out of where the gang was standing, and they fall down into a pool below. And this swimming pool looks like it's underneath the it's like part of the museum, but it's like underneath, and the saw then drops down thanks to the mummy, chases after them, but luckily because it's water, it electrocutes itself. Now the gang is still running around, the mummy's still chasing him. Shaggy and Scooby find like cement bags and figure out how the mummy was like making statues of everyone. Then they lock themselves in the shed, and they find the professor in there, but they come back for him later. And then after a few more hijinks, that Daphne, Fred, and Velma lock themselves in the gym, and the mummy's like slamming on the door, but Shaggy and Scooby accidentally let him in with the mower. Now they're bouncing on the trampolines, and the mummy traps himself. Scooby traps him on top of the basketball ring, and unmasking him, it turns out to be Dr. Najib. And then they cut back to the professor, and he explains his plan. He basically captured the professor and pretended to turn himself into a statue as well. He hid the real mummy of Anka behind some plants, dressed up as the mummy of Anka, and he was after the coin because it unlocked a special rare beetle inside the hippo shown in the book. And that basically concludes the episode.
Now let's see who's really behind these bandages. Dr. Najib!
So it was apparent that Dr. Najib knew the secret of the coin. And after you kids left, he broke in hoping to steal it. But when I surprised him, he had to tie me up in the shack.
And when he couldn't find the coin, he knew one of us must have it. So he devised this whole mummy plan to scare us into giving it to him.
But we wouldn't give it to him, and later we figured out the secret. The coin fits into the design carved on the back of the hippo like a key. This looks like the slot. Now let's see what it unlocks.
Wow! A secret compartment with a glass beetle in it! Not quite a glass beetle. It's Anka's most valued treasure. A diamond scarab worth a fortune.
So that's what he was after. But there's still one thing unsolved. What happened to the real mummy?
Zoinks! The mummy!
And he found the mummy!
Well, gang, I guess that wraps up the mystery.
Scooby's fooling around with the proper mummy of Anka. So that's the end of the episode. I give it a 10 out of 10. Of course, it's such a great episode. The mummy was quite a good villain. I don't think he was amazing, but he was still pretty good. Thought all the characters were pretty good. The setting of the museum, I kept on calling him a museum. Was it actually a school? I'm not sure. You have to let me know down in the comments. I'm 100% sure. Dr. Najib was a great character. The setting was really good, the atmosphere. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the review. Stay tuned for some more reviews coming out soon on the channel next week.
This should... Uh-oh, I wish I hadn't seen what I think I saw.
Coin. Zoinks! It's the creepy coin collector again!